Hello, welcome to pro tip number 60, where today I'll be covering automations. So if you haven't been following our recent news publications, blogs, etc., or any of the socials, you might have missed that there was a new launch, the 2024 fall launch, where we introduced a bunch of new things. I'd suggest if you haven't seen what we've released or what has been added since then, to head over to the website and take a look at the launch blog. Or if you go to any of our socials, there should be posts on there as well of the actual launch blog. I think we sent out emails to everyone as well. So there's plenty of ways you can find that blog post that lists all the new things. One of those new things was automations, or as we call it at the moment, FlowBuilder. So that allows you to create flows, automations, either completely within the Lansweeper product or to external applications as well. Now, one of the main reasons why I wanted to cover this specific topic is because I've been basically asking for this for a very long time, not specifically in this manner. And today's topic, the topic that I'll be covering specifically, will be around notifications. And the reason why I've been so adamant about having notifications, or let's say a modern notification system within the product, is because previously, last couple of years, we brought out functionality features that help specific use cases. And that's great if you have one of those use cases or if you're working towards one of those use cases. But what we're adding now with things like the new dashboards, with things like the FlowBuilder, is we're adding functionality, or we're changing things that do not impact a single use case. It impacts all use cases. And that's the great thing about it, is because it's no longer just targeting a specific subsection of our audience or just like a couple of people that want to do X or Y. It basically opens the door for everyone to do and get something out of it, regardless of what they're using the product for. So with that being said, as I mentioned, we're going to head over I'm going to go a bit more into detail into the notification side of things. So how you can use automations to create notifications. And specifically, it will be Slack notifications I'll be using as the example. One thing to note is that the builder that I'm using, it is in beta. So for one, it's not, let's say, openly available to everyone yet. That will be coming soon-ish, I hope. Second, because it is a beta, a lot of things might change, will change. I will be providing files that you can, if you get access to it, that you can use to import and then work off of. But you will have to, if you want to try this, you will have to sign up first. And the link will be in the blog version of this video. It'll probably be also, hopefully, I'll ask to put it in the description as well of the video. So you can sign up and get access to it. And then you can use the files and all the examples that I'm showing today to create your own notifications or do whatever else you'd like to do. So let's head into Lansweeper then, where I have opened here. There we go. This is FlowBuilder. So I've already have a bunch of things pre-prepared because I don't have the time to go through everything. But there's a few important things to note if you want to create Slack notifications. Obviously, you need to create a Slack app. You need to have a workspace. Well, you need to have a workspace, obviously. And in that workspace, you need to have a Slack app. And then there are a few permissions that you need to enable. And I think if I just randomly click on, I think I added it to these ones, but I'll show you real quick. One thing I did to documentation for these things, I quickly added here what it's needed. So they need to have the chat right and chat right.public and the channel's read scopes. So these scopes need to be added to your Slack application. As well as, I believe you need to add a URL. About the URL, if you do not add it, it will also show up when you try and actually do the connection. It will tell you like this URL is not supported or something along those lines. But basically, if I head over into my Slack application thing here, this is the redirect URL that needs to be added. Again, if you do not add this and you try and test your automation, then it will tell you. And here, by the way, are the scopes right below it that I've added as well. So these things are the important things that you need to add in your Slack application. That being out of the way, let me exit back out. And let's start a fresh workflow. Start it from scratch. Let's give it a title. So like test Slack workflow. And then the first thing that it asks you is always a trigger. So you can use another application as a trigger. You can use a webhook, a schedule, or it says here management, which I haven't really dug into the management side of things. So I'm not quite sure what that all includes, but the one that we'll be using for this one is the schedule. You might be asking why, is because what I'll be creating is a notification that gives you the total number of results in a specific report every single day. Now, why every single day? Because the reports are executed, or you can schedule your reports to be executed every single day. So that's why I'm doing it once a day. So midday, basically, it is being run. You can select your time zone, how many, occurs every single day. Let's create that trigger. So that starts the trigger. Now, next up, you can add basically whatever you want in your workflows. If I click here on the plus, it asks you to add another step. You can do that through logic. There's helpers or apps. They have like these main three categories. Logic will just be kind of branching off or doing loops, that kind of thing. The helpers will be things like you can either do fully customized code, you can do manipulations on data. There's a bunch of stuff here, any kind of math equations that you need to do or things you need to do, text manipulation. There's a bunch of basically items in here that you can use in order to change or transform data in some way. And then the last thing that we have is apps, where basically there's a very, very long list of apps. Actually, it's smaller than I thought it would be. Maybe we've disabled some in recent times. But basically, there's quite a long list here of apps that you can use as well in order to connect to whatever you want. Now, I don't think actually this shows everything. No, it doesn't. This just shows a small section. That's why it's less. But for example, if you were to type in Lansweeper, that comes up. I think as well, if you were to talk to SQL, for example, there you go. It filters both on the product as well as the actual actions that you can do with that product. So that's an easy way to find things. One of the main things that I found in my kind of process of discovering how to use this and learning it is that the main thing that was holding me back is not knowing what the possibilities were or are, and what kind of helpers, what do they specifically do, and if I want to do this, what action do I need to use in order to do this? So hopefully with the examples that I give, I'll be giving you some pointers and it'll help you understand a little bit of what's possible. But a lot of this will be, looking at the different steps, the different actions, and seeing what can I do here and what are the options. And it'll be a bit of a discovery journey. But as I said, it is in beta. Once we are going into GA, or as we are working towards GA, we'll also be providing templates. We'll have sort of a marketplace is the idea to have, so that people can share their workflows that they've created. So it should make it a lot easier to take examples, take existing things and start modifying them. But to start off with, I'm going to add a few things that I need for my specific notification that I want. So I want the total number of report results, which means it's just the way that it is right now, is that in order to parse the report results into something usable, I will need a parse, if I type it correctly, a parse step. So that parses CSV data in an array of rows. That's something I'll need. Then the next thing I'll need is length, because this counts the number of rows. Again, that's what I'll need in order to actually count how many results there are. And then because it also counts the headers as part of the result, And even I've seen sometimes there's like an empty row at the end or something like that it shows in the API results that you get from Lansweeper. I will need a evaluate expression. That's a math helper, as they call it. That's one I'll need as well. And then obviously the last thing that I want to do is post message and then post a Slack message. All right, now you'll see obviously a bunch of red dots. The only thing I haven't added yet is Lansweeper itself. So this is one that I'll add. So Lansweeper itself, what I need from Lansweeper is I will need the report details. So this report detail one, obviously that shouldn't be at the end. I'm actually going to put it all the way at the beginning because we need to have the report details and to then parse it, check the length, do the calculation in order to remove the header row from the count, and also if there's a trailing strange thing, that remove that. And then that final result is something that we'll post in a Slack channel. So with that being said, first thing it asks for report details, it asks for a report ID. So I'm going to open my report section here. And one thing to keep in mind for this one is in order to use reports and the results of reports specifically, you will need to make that report available to the API. Now, any report will have this API button at the top, and I will show you basically all the different API applications basically that you can allow it to do things for. Now, as you can see, I already have a bunch in here because I've been testing a bunch. But as you create an application, it will create one of these default FlowBuilder ones that you can then allow or expose the reports to. Now, I might have to do that, refresh it later on because this one hasn't been saved yet, so I might not have created that specific API endpoint yet. So let me just grab the report ID. Now, if you don't know how to grab the report ID, it is always in the URL. It is always this component here before the question mark. So just after the report detail slash, so you can just grab that, copy it, throw it in here. That's the report ID. Now for the parsing part of things, we want to parse the results of that report. So how do we do that? In this parse, you can just add a value, you can do a reference, a config variable, or a template. Template basically allows you to combine references and values, etc. But in this case, we just want a reference because we're going to reference the results of the report details. So here, report details, the results of the report details. The delimiter will be a comma. You could also check that by running the application or doing a test run, and then you can look at the results, but I'll show you those later. Length. The length, there is one specific thing. Again, we want to reference, we want to count the length of the data in this case. Again, I'll show you later on as to why and how I figured out that I needed to select this. And then last, the expression. Here we'll need a template because I do not just want to select something else. I need to actually select something and then do a calculation with it. So here, again, we add a reference to the length, the results of the length. And I know last time I checked, there was a header and also a trailing result that was basically a 0, which was kind of strange, but I'll have to do -2, basically, to deduct those two, the header row and the trailing 0 from the overall count that it does. So that should give me an accurate number of results in a report. Last thing here is a Slack message. Now it asks me, what do I want to say? Well, again, I'm going to go with the template because I will want to use the number that comes from the previous step. So I'm going to say the report has, and then I will add a reference to indeed the results of this evaluate expression one. So that will be a number, results, and then the channel name or ID. I know that for my one, that's testing. Once you actually go into publicizing or publishing this workflow and putting it live, you will be able to select the channel when you connect to your Slack instance or your Slack workspace, I think they call it. But you can just type in the name. You can also find an ID. I think if I go to my one here, this is my Slack test one. I believe if you right click on them and like view the channel details at the bottom, it shows you like a Slack channel ID in case you wanted to use that. But let's head back to that one. This tab. The other ones are optional. They're not required. So that's that. And then there's some red dots remaining here, test configuration, and here in the configuration wizard. You can use either one, but let's use the configuration wizard, where it indeed says the Slack connection still needs to be made. You can adjust these things here. Well, these things will need to be adjusted basically. So you will need to enter client ID, client secret, and signing secret. So now that I've added that, simply hit update. That should be fine now. Go there, and that's done. In order to actually test, you will still need to then allow your application. So if we click here on test instance configuration, I'll bring that up. It'll ask me to connect, ask me for permissions. Yes, you're allowed to do that. Authorization complete. Here you'll see that's gone to active. I can hit finish on that. And that will allow me to now start doing tests. Now, in this case, I haven't done any tests in between, but I'll show you how you can use basically test runs to see what is happening, where you might need to manipulate data and things like that. So now that this test run is running, I should also be able to go to my notifications. I can see here that my testing one has a new item in it, and I can see that indeed the report has one result. If I go back to my report, that is accurate. Now, how can you double check, or how did I find out to do -2 and what specific items to select in these different steps? Well, it's basically through doing these test runs. Basically, when you click on your test run, you'll get a breakdown of all your steps and everything that's been executed, as well as, I'm going to pull it up a bit more, as well as kind of the full output of what happened there. So if we head over to the report details and I mouse over this, I can actually see exactly what my result was and the format that has been in. So you can see that it starts with all the headers, and then below that, it adds all the results. And that's how I figured out, well, I'm going to have to do at least -1. Another way to find it out is when I actually started parsing the data in order to get it in a kind of a structured list. As you can see here, this data is separated by the number of instances or items in that report. And as you can see here, the first entrance that it has is just old headers. Then the first one, or number 1, I guess, here is the actual result, or the only result that's in there. And then we have a second one in here for some reason that is just a 0. I'm not quite sure why that's there. Maybe we'll be able to improve that in the future or not. But it's just how you figure these things out, basically. You just go through it, doing test run every single time. And as you go along step by step, you'll find these things and you can adjust them. So we know we have to do -2 because we have this header and we have this empty 0 here that's there for some reason. As we count, then if we do the length, you can again see it gives you a result of 3. Meanwhile, my result is just 1. So why is it giving 3? Again, same reason. That's why I then added the step of evaluating the expression, or doing the evaluate expression step, where then I do the -2. Hopefully that is consistent for all the reports. And then the last one here is just a post message. It won't give any results in this one really, or anything usable in that one. That's why we have this. This is where you do all the magic happens in basically the step configuration for that one. But that's how we've gone, or basically now we've created a Slack notification that every day at noon gives you the results of any report. I mean, the only difference is that you just have to change out the ID, and you need to make sure that it's exposed through the API. That's the difference. And now I use this, example that I already had set up. One other thing to make sure that you do for these, obviously, it executes every day at midday, the actual workflow, but you have to schedule your report as well. So make sure that otherwise you'll just keep getting the same result over and over again. And that if that works for you, that's fine. But I'm assuming that you don't want that. So you will have to schedule a report every single day, or whenever you want it. Obviously, you can change the schedules to whatever you want. But schedule your reports to make sure that it always has up-to-date information. That's the last thing I wanted to add. And as mentioned, you can use any of these reports, any report that you have, any customized report that you have. As long as you want to know the number of results, you can do that and set it up the way that I showed you. Now, that's the main thing. There are a few extra steps in order to actually publish this. And get it running and get it live. One thing that you'll need to do is once you've set this all up, and you can go here in the workflow details and like add a description, give it like a category, like notification. I'll even do notification tests, so that'll create a new category even for it. Then you can publish it. So it will automatically save every time you run it. But let me publish it, and it says version 1. I can add comments if I want to say this or that changed. Publish it. And then once it's published, here in the shared workflow configuration, like kind of the marketplace icon, you want to add it to your shared workflows. Again, you will have to give some kind of description for it. Example for pro tips. Add that. That will now be, as it says, deployable. So that is now in the shared workflows. So now if I go to my shared workflows, then here is my, where is it? Is it gone under notification test? There it is. Wow, I was missing it. And then here now you can hit configure, and then it will just simply ask you for, I believe, your site ID. It will ask you to, again, connect to your Slack instance. It will ask you to select the channel that you want it to post to, and that's it. It's basically set up. And I have some other ones in here, but I'll go through that in a second just to show you the alternative options. Again, the files in order to import these will be linked in the blog version. So if you want to grab these and take a look at them, modify them for your own uses, you can. So next thing, I did the Slack total report results one, so where it counts the total number of results. But another thing that you might want to do is, instead of just having the total number of results, you might want to see the actual asset names that are in there, or the assets that are in that report. So one thing I've done for that is created this one where it takes all the information. It just gives you a list of all the assets that are in that report, basically. I use the same report. So that's all the same. Again, it's a similar start. We have a trigger, triggers every single day. Again, with the scheduled report, we grab the report details from the same report. We then parse that data. Then we start a loop where we go looping over all of that data. Because there might be many results, we'll have to go over each and every single result in that report. And then I added a branch in order to take out those that header line, as I mentioned, and like the line at the end of it, basically. But mainly the header line, because the one at the end doesn't have a value, so that one's fine. But mainly the header one to take that out of the results. That's why I did a branch where I basically say if the item that you're currently going over is not equal to asset name, which is the what will be in the header one, then you can post it. Otherwise, do nothing. And this is again just a post one. I added here like the name of the report so that I know what kind of report it's posting from, and it's saying has the following assets, and then it just gives me an asset name. So if I do a test run on this, it should just come up. Again, this is a report that just has one name, so it should just come up with one. So that is running. If I head over to my testing channel here, oh, I selected a different one. I forgot about that. But here in the social channel, a new one just popped up saying following assets, and here I can see the asset name. Now, again, I will go back to my workflow and show you quickly what options that you have, because you do not have to use the asset name if you want to. The thing is, if I go here to parse, go to data, go to my example, or even go to the header list, pull this up a bit. You can see basically these are all the details that were retrieved or that were in the report, all the different columns that I had in the report. You can select any of these. It's just I wanted the asset name. You can pick whichever one you want basically from this and post that in Slack if you wanted to. Again, here I picked number 10 as a name. Again, here number 10, that's as a name. So that's all fine in there. That's why, for example, here in the branch, that's why it says current item 10. And again, here is why it says current item 10. It's because I'm taking the 10th entry of the current item that it's looping over, basically. So that's another way of doing things. Again, we could very easily adjust this by just simply going to any of the reports that I have here. Let's take one that doesn't have too many entries. I don't want my Slack to be, or I don't want it to be stuck for, 10 minutes looping over a bunch of different answers. But for example, we have here all workstations. They should have just 18 entries. It said, yes. So I'm going to expose this to the API. I'm not entirely sure which one that one was linked to. So I'm just going to select all of them. That's the easiest way of doing it. And also the most secure, I'm sure. Then, again, as I said, you need the report ID. Report ID here, update that, run it. And that's all I basically need in order to change it. Now, it will still say that it was the other report because I didn't change the text in my Slack message. So it will still say that it's coming from a different report, but basically you can see here that it's taking it from the other one. And I can even tell you here, because my columns are different in that report, I made a mistake. So, and that's how you figure out things, basically, is trial and error. So if I head over to my last result, go over to my parse, I can see here that asset name is here number 4. So if I go to my post message, is there anything here? Current item number 4, asset name, save. This one didn't need any, nope. And then this one again, current item number 4, asset name. Run it again, because here it was giving me usernames. And there we go. We can see it live populating all of the actual asset names. And that's how simple it is really to adjust these and change them and just fix them if there's something wrong with it. So it's quite easy on that front. So let's head back. And the last example that I have for today is one with that's a bit more complicated because it's one that's triggered based upon a webhook. So as you know, I mean, the triggers that I've used up to now are just scheduled ones. So it's nice to have it once in a while, or I mean, it posts every single day when the report is updated, which is great. But what if you need something that's more instant, where you need to be notified if X or Y happens pretty much as soon as it happens? Well, that's why there are webhooks. That's why we have webhooks. Now, we are still going to improve this. So maybe by the time that you see this, this might have changed. Again, we are continuously changing and updating these things to make it easier and make it better. But for now, the way that you have to do it is obviously your trigger will be a webhook. Your response status will be 200. You'll have to select that. And the response content type will be application/JSON. So those are the things that you need to add there. Now, for the moment, in order to grab the asset ID or the asset key, we need a bit of custom code. But again, this will be in the file, so you won't have to copy paste this. I'll share the file. You'll be able to take it from that. But we are working on getting the webhook, making sure that there's a default action in there for that so that you don't have to do this custom code block thing. But we created a bit of custom code to basically grab the asset ID from the webhook when it comes in. Now then, again, we do, in this case, we want to get the asset details. So we want to grab the asset details from the asset that has been passed on to us by the webhook. That's why it's result.assetKey. It's coming from the code block. Again, this is like a reference that we're referencing to the code block area. And then we have the last one where we simply want to post the results to a Slack channel. And in this case, what I chose to do is simply post the asset details URL. Now this will allow us, or this will make it so that the URL to the asset is posted in your Slack channel, making it very easy for you to just click on it and go to the asset that's been created or that has been newly scanned. I just added here has been scanned. You could add has been created, technically speaking. Now, configuration-wise for this, it is a bit more complex because of the webhook. You will need to configure a webhook. How do you do that? Well, in your profile, in the bottom left here, you can go to Developer Tools, Webhook, and you can create a new webhook. Webhooks will need two things, basically. You will need to select what is triggering the webhook. Now, I did it just on creation. You can also do it on deletion of assets, on linking of a site or a site deletion. And here below, we have a bunch of different items that you can select. And basically, if you select any of these, a webhook will be triggered if there's an update performed on any of these entities. As it says, receive updates from selected assets entities. As well as there's some extra data here. So any of these can be done if you want to get like specific triggers or create triggers for specific items, specific parts of assets details. But I just did a simple one where it's just creation. Now, the next thing that you'll need is the payload URL. How do you get the payload URL? Well, that's also something you need to know, basically. But under your test configuration, there is a trigger payload button here under your test instance configuration. The trigger payload button here at the top, it will show you your webhook or your payload URL again. Yes, your payload URL here. You can copy it easily with that button and throw it in here, and that will set up your webhook. You will need to select a auth or a OAuth API client. You might have to create that first before you create the webhook. Again, that would just be under development tools, API clients. Here's the OAuth or zero. No, it's an OAuth client. And you might have to create a new one. And again, if that's being done, if you've created that one, you might have to adjust here in the configuration. Here's your Lansweeper connection. You might have to change this, update this based upon the information that you get here in order so that it's pointing to the right API client. So if you have any connections issues, those two things, check them thoroughly, make sure they're all set and done. If that is in order, though, if that's all set correctly, should be good to go. You have, like I said, triggered by the webhook, grabs the asset key, grabs the details from that asset based on the asset key that it got sent over, and it will post a message with the URL towards the actual asset. So let's try that. So let's head over to our inventory. Now, I'm not going to scan something new now. The easiest way of doing it is just to create something, where here I'll just say pro tips asset test. We need to select an installation. I'll just select something here, and I need something here as well. That's all I need. That's all the ones that are required. Save that. Says, okay, that's doing its thing. Let's head over to the Slack channel. And that should be coming in soon. Oh, there we go. It's saying that's new. And it says here, this asset, or as you said, it gives the URL, as I mentioned, has been scanned. We click on that, and it should bring us to the asset that I just created and showing it to us. And that should work for basically any asset creation should work exactly the same thing. So you can get notified. And again, this is a very quick example of how you can do things. You can change however the Slack message gets posted. One thing I still, for example, need to do is I want to put this link on the asset name, just make it like a hyperlink basically on the asset name that the asset has been given. Something I still need to take a look at and see how I do that exactly. Other things you can do is obviously not just the asset. The asset now itself here, yes, but As I mentioned with the trigger, you can trigger it on specific components or specific items or specific details from assets, those kind of things. When updates get done, basically, that could be very interesting. So there's plenty here to do and to find out, but that will basically be it for me for now. So I've shown you the 3 examples that I have for now. We are working on a lot more, as I mentioned. We are changing this all the time. And maybe one more thing I can show. Now that we're in here anyway, let me just refresh this. One thing that you'll also notice, you'll probably most likely or very definitely will notice, is when you are creating this, since we are updating this all the time, is that you'll see updates. When you use my files, if you use my files, you'll see updates to specific components. And how that will, or what that will look like, I'll show you now. If you click on these different components, there will always be a v something. So this is a version of the actual component. If one is not on the latest version, this will be in orange. Currently, Lansweeper is in v5, but if I show all versions, obviously you can see here, when it started in v1, went to all the way to v5. It might be needed, or most likely will be needed, that you update your components. Again, I think also this might have an orange dot on it, this components item. This shows you also the components or the version of all components, and you even have the option here to update it. So be sure to, when you import it, quickly check whether this has all been updated. Most likely, it might change a few things, but it should make things a lot easier in order to, it might remove some configuration that now I still have to do and you might not have to do. It might give you more options and things like that. Because and when I talk more options, I basically mean the Lansweeper action might get more options, because right now, we have options to delete assets, added assets, get the details, get software details, vulnerability details. I can scroll through it slowly here so you can see all the options that we have right now, but there will obviously be coming more, and we'll be adding more as things get requested and as we see the need in order to add more actions by default. So that is actually it, I believe. I have gone through everything now. So hopefully this has been, at the very least, a nice showcase to you as to what we can actually do and what we will be able to, or what you will be able to do in the future, and how you can change things, how you can not only, right now I've shown you notifications, but if I go back to my workflows, these workflows don't have to be coming from Lansweeper to another product. They can be completely within Lansweeper. You can say, and you can do things if, this software is installed, change this field on the asset. If it has this, property, change the asset type to this. I'm just throwing out random ideas here, but it can be, just to say, it can be completely within the Lansweeper product itself. It doesn't have to have a connection to the outside. So there's so many possibilities here, and we'll be exploring them. I will be exploring them over the next couple of months. We will be exploring them within the next couple of months. And as we work closer to GA, we'll provide templates, and I'm sure we'll do many more of these pro tips where we show you specific use cases that you can do. To know for right now is that you can already sign up for this beta to get your hands on it, to start trying it out, to already use the examples that I'm using, or to use any of the future ones that we might do in between. So be sure to sign up for it if you're interested in trying this out. And with that being said, I think that's everything for me right now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.